Hey everyone, it's the Socean Finance enthusiast, and today I'm going to be talking about Socean Finance's governance token. So this is actually called the SOCN token, and they've released some articles about the tokenomics and how they've planned their governance token. So they split this up into two parts. So the first part is the identifying the problems with existing tokenomics, and the second part is a introduction of Socean's governance token. So this Medium article talks about the three big problems that governance tokens make. So this is namely launching without a clear tokens utility, launching with too low of supply, and emitting too much supply, usually via liquidity mining. So the first point talks about tokens launching with no clear utility, which causes price anxiety. So this happens a fair bit just with a lot of projects where they, especially in generic farms, where you just provide liquidity and they give you this useless farm token, and most of the time people just dump it to get a better token. The second point talks about launching with too low of an initial supply, and that resulting in a long-term fall in token price. So I've seen this personally with one of the Solana projects. I'm not going to name it, but I'm going to show you a quick chart. And I think this is typically what happens here, where they're talking about price starts off incredibly high due to hype, FOMO, and artificial low supply, and then quickly begins to fall as high emissions to initial supply ratio results in over 100% yearly inflation. So this is one of the governance tokens that launched off with not much utility, and hype and FOMO pushed the price really high up, so around 20 cents. But then all the liquidity mining and high emissions resulted in a lot of sell pressure. So you can see that the price has pretty much been dumped into perpetuity, and it went down to even less than a cent. So Socean Finance make a really good point about liquidity mining causing a collapse in token price. So the people who profit the most are whales. So these are referred to as, I suppose, liquidity mining mercenaries. People who don't believe in the long-term health of the protocol are only interested in the short-term yield. So these kind of people basically jump from protocol to protocol, chasing high yields. And once the yield goes down, they abandon the protocol, the TVL decreases, just got a whole bunch of sell pressure from all these people farming and dumping the token. There's another example chart here that shows an example of this happening with the liquidity mining and basically all these people coming in and dumping the token after they farm it. So to combat these problems, Socean Finance have a list of solutions that they want to achieve, or rather goals, right? So they want to provide clear utility, so that's why they've kind of waited and designed the token instead of releasing it straight away. Socean Finance has been running for months now, but they're really taking the time to design a good governance token. So they're talking about price stability here. So they want to eventually grow the governance token in value over time and not have it just dump down to oblivion. So they want to incentivize deposits into liquidity pairs, and in doing so they'll try and grow the TVL. Another goal is to grow protocol wealth continuously instead of using the strip mining that a lot of other protocols have fallen victim to. And similarly, they want to make sure that they filter out the short-term mercenary liquidity, so all the people who just want to come in and farm and dump the token. So part of the solution is their Socean Streams program. So moving on to the second part of the governance token. So this is going to be talking about the tokenomics of the token itself as well, and how they're going to implement buying it and also launching the token. So the article mentions clear utility. They talk about a rising tide revenue accrual mechanism and the fair sale of the token. So moving on with the tokenomics, it has a total supply of 1 billion, and the initial circulating supply is 16% of total supply, sold via fair sale. So there's going to be another post about the exact allocation. So that would probably include how the rest of the token supply is going to be distributed or sold. Just as a side note, you can already get the SOCN governance token if you deposit your Socean Sol into Socean Finance. So they have 100,000 SOCN allocated to rewards for deposits in the first month. So if we have a quick look at Solan, the rewards for depositing Socean Sol into the protocol is no longer giving out rewards, but it was giving them out previously. I just missed it. So back to the governance token utility. The Socean team currently use the Solana governance program to vote on decisions that the protocol makes. The core team has already used the governance program for multiple proposals, and this will open up to Socean holders. So this is what the dashboard currently looks like. And onto the Tokenomics Design. What they're aiming to do is reward long-term holders, accrue real permanent wealth to the protocol, stabilize the price of the token in the short term, and grow it in the long term. So the strategy for the fair sale is to have a large percentage of total supply sold initially. So that's 16%, which is quite large compared to a lot of other IDOs and ICOs. The other thing to note is that early users and contributors get the same price as investors, and they cap the maximum price to prevent runaway valuations and buyer's remorse. So there's two parts to that 16% sale. The first one is the pre-sale, which is 8%, and the second one is the capped auction. So the pre-sale is 8% of total supply, and this will be available to users who get a golden ticket. So there's going to be some way to be able to purchase these tokens for 6 cents, and that is the same price that the investors got. So that's really good. So this is actually really rare to have the pre-sale for early supporters getting the same price that the investors got at 6 cents. So that's pretty interesting how they're doing that. The second one is the capped auction, and I suppose that will be a maximum price of 30 cents depending on demand at the auction. And they're going to provide more details in the next post. So here they're talking about deep liquidity. So having a lot of liquidity means that there'll be less slippage between swapping. So that will increase the comfort for people using Socean Sol if they're able to exchange large amounts of Socean Sol for Solana. And they're not going to be using aggressive liquidity mining. They're going to be using their service called Socean Streams, which is about liquidity purchase. So what happens here is you'll be able to sell a token and get, for example, the SOCN token unlocked over time. So for the example given, someone who owns 30 B30 SOCN will receive 1 SOCN per day for 30 days. So there's different time periods. So the B30 and B80, B365 is the bonding period, which means how long it takes for your tokens to be unlocked. So this is a period of 30 days, half a year, and a year. So they explain the reasons why they do this. They're talking about liquidity purchase retains effectiveness even as TVL grows. And that's the problem with liquidity mining. When you have more people in the pool, the amount of emissions has to be larger and larger for the amount of liquidity. And with that distributing tokens over time, we don't flood the market with tokens, keeping the Socean supply, inflation rate, price action healthy. And they believe doing so will attract long-term holders instead of short-term mercenary capital. And the third mechanism for the governance token is the rising tide. And what they're going to be doing here is they're going to set up a private SOCN USDC liquidity pool. And this is going to be used for anyone to be able to trade, so they can swap between the two tokens. But only the protocol itself can add or remove liquidity from it. By doing so, they plan to add their USDC revenues into the liquidity pool. So this will cause the spot price of SOCN to increase. So by adding that extra USDC into the pool, it causes the price of SOCN to increase. So they're giving an example here. Suppose the liquidity pool starts off with 100 SOCN and 100 USDC as an example. Thus the market price of SOCN is 1 USDC, so they're the same value. The protocol now adds 10 USDC to the pool. Now the pool has 100 SOCN and 110 USDC. The price of SOCN thus becomes $1.10. So what they're doing here in essence is backing the price of the governance token with its reserves and future revenues. So by doing this, they solve two problems. They provide liquidity for the Socean governance token and have a way to automatically distribute profits to token holders. The combination of guaranteed liquidity and future revenue accrual gives SOCN price stability and long-term price appreciation. So in conclusion, they have three main points here. The fair sale puts private investors and users on the same footing. They plan to use their Socean streams as their liquidity purchase mechanism, which grows protocol value and rewards long-term holders. And they're creating their rising tide mechanism, which provides price stability and gives the token utility. They've definitely put a lot of thought into designing their governance token. So with all these things in place, I suspect that in the long term, they'll really be able to hold the price of the token and appreciate its value in the long term. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.